Nobody in that crowded auditorium anticipated what would happen when Caitlin Clark took the microphone at the podium. The WNBA star, who had already shattered every record imaginable, was on the verge of shattering an even more potent one. The decades-long quiet around women's sports. That is no longer something that can be negotiated. Seems like if you want a franchise, you have to have it. What began as a standard awards presentation swiftly evolved into a moment that would reverberate across sports history and beyond. The audience didn't merely stand up in deafening ovation at the next lines. They inspired a whole generation to take action. However, what could a basketball player say that would make fans, executives, and seasoned sportsmen cry? The speech that followed would question all of our preconceived notions about athletic achievement and the value of using one's position to further a cause bigger than oneself. When Caitlin Clark stood up to claim her WNBA Rookie of the Year award at the league's annual awards presentation in November 2024, the scene was already historic. The biggest names in women's basketball, sports media, and corporate sponsors who had seen the most revolutionary season in WNBA history came together for the event, which took place at a crowded location in New York City. Swimming and diving in Valley North. There was more to Clark's presence at the podium than merely his own accomplishments. In women's professional sports, it was the start of a new era. In ways that appeared nearly unattainable, Clark's debut season in 2024 broke records and crushed expectations. She led the Indiana Fever to their first postseason trip since 2016 while averaging 19.2 points, 8.4 assists, and 5.7 rebounds per game. Among her statistical accomplishments were breaking rookie marks for assists, 337, and three-pointers made. With 122, making history as the first rookie to record a triple-double. Melissa Smith had to go to the line, but she managed to finish the three. Clark's presence had a commercial influence that went beyond basketball itself, as her games consistently sold out arenas throughout the league and attracted over 1 million television viewers. The Indiana Fever switched from playing in lesser locations to selling out the same arena used by the NBA's Indiana Pacers, and season ticket sales climbed by more than 400%. In the history of women's professional sports, the financial shift was unparalleled. WNBA greats like Diana Taurasi, Sue Bird, and Maya Moore were among the attendees that evening, along with contemporary superstars like A'ja Wilson and Breanna Stewart. The remaining seats were occupied by young fans who had been motivated by Clark's journey, media figures, and corporate leaders. As a result, everyone just adjusted to the new season and change. The broad coalition that Clark's accomplishment had created around women's basketball was reflected in the diverse attendance. It is unclear what aspects of Clark's rookie season might have prepared her for this kind of public speaking opportunity, and whether her time at Iowa, where she grew accustomed to intense media attention, influenced her capacity to speak to such a sizable and powerful audience. The gathering was instantly captivated by Clark's introductory remarks, which acknowledged the generations of women who had laid the groundwork for her triumph rather than her own accomplishments. She spoke about WNBA pioneers who played in small arenas for meager compensation while retaining other professions, developing the league framework that enabled her to attain notoriety and financial success. Her speech's emotional center was accountability. It is both her duty to make good use of her platform and everyone's duty to make sure that the advancements she made during her debut season would last long after her playing career was over. Even though her individual star power would wane, she urged league officials, sponsors, media, and fans to continue supporting women's basketball. Clark's message blended targeted appeals to action with sincere emotion. It was a lot of fun, and Taylor is clearly incredible, and I think just, as she described specific actions that various stakeholders could take to support the development of women's sports, she addressed media coverage, urging regular attention to women's basketball throughout the season rather than just during playoff runs or record-breaking performances. Her remarks were significant since they came from a person whose presence had significantly changed the sports industry's commercial environment. As Clark talked about her colleagues and coaches who had helped her make the adjustment to professional basketball, the standing ovation gradually started. When she acknowledged opponents who had challenged her to get better while preserving the fierce competition that defines women's basketball, the cheers got louder. Captivating. She's simply a really nice, compassionate person, and you can really feel that. However, It was when she turned her attention from basketball to more general societal impact that the entire crowd stood up. Legal experts note that public speeches by professional athletes have increasingly become platforms for addressing social issues and advocating for systemic change, reflecting the evolution of athlete activism and the recognition that sports figures have unique abilities to influence public opinion and policy discussions. As she talked about growing up watching women's basketball on television and dreaming of playing professionally, while realizing that the financial and media attention available to male athletes far exceeded what she could expect in women's sports, Clark's remarks about equality in sports reverberated throughout the auditorium. Her personal narrative evolved into a more general statement about gender parity and the significance of providing opportunity for next generations. In addition to inspiring young girls in the audience and at home to follow their athletic aspirations, the basketball star utilized her platform to stress the value of education and the development of talents outside of athletics. It's amazing. A new record for a single WNBA game. Her address acknowledged the difficulties faced by female athletes while expressing hope for new opportunities, striking a mix between inspiration and realism. Players in the audience gave her a special round of applause when she talked about connections with teammates and respect for competition. Clark talked about picking up tips from seasoned players who at first saw her as a danger to their playing time and notoriety, but who eventually saw her performance as advantageous for the league as a whole. Throughout her freshman season, these connections had changed as early hostilities gave way to respect and cooperation. Fans who had supported women's basketball throughout her debut season were specifically acknowledged in the speech. For many, it was their first time participating in the sport. Clark admitted that sustained attempts to make games accessible and enjoyable for a variety of audiences, as well as consistent quality from all players, will be necessary to sustain fan involvement. Corporate executives and sponsors received direct appreciation for their increased commitment in women's basketball. But Clark also challenged them to retain their support despite inevitable downturns in attention or performance. Applause. Music. Her participation had produced previously unheard-of cash and media attention that benefited the entire league ecosystem, thus her statements held special weight. It begs the question of what discussions Clark may have had before to the ceremony with mentors, coaches, or seasoned players that shaped her choice to emphasize group accountability over individual accomplishments. According to the implications, her speech demonstrated a mature awareness of her place in the history of women's basketball and her duty to use her position to make a bigger difference. When Clark talked about her grandfather's impact on her basketball career and his emphasis on utilizing achievement to help others accomplish their own objectives, her speech reached its emotional peak. Her personal narrative resonated with viewers who were aware of the sacrifices made by families and the networks of support that allow elite athletes to succeed. When Clark challenged the media to cover women's basketball in a way that goes beyond her individual games and performances, she received a lot of support. It was done by Caitlin. She especially asked for consideration of other gifted athletes, gripping narratives, and the commercial facets of women's professional sports that show the league's expansion and commercial feasibility. In addition to calling for greater inclusion of female coaches and executives in decision-making positions throughout professional and collegiate basketball, the rookie sensation discussed coaching and development prospects for women in basketball. Her efforts demonstrated her awareness that representation at all levels of athletic organizations is necessary for systemic change. Her remarks regarding women's basketball's global expansion recognized both the sport's global reach and the chances for American athletes to gain knowledge from competition elsewhere, while also imparting their expertise to growing basketball programs across the globe. When Clark concluded by saying that individual success is meaningless without collective progress and that her rookie season accomplishments would only be significant if they contributed to long-lasting good change for women's basketball and women's sports in general, the standing ovation peaked. In her closing remarks, she urged everyone in attendance to continue their dedication to equality and progress long after the initial thrill of record-breaking seasons and viral moments had subsided. Yes, I have mentioned that Kansas City would be a fantastic location for a franchise. Well, I haven't really participated in that. As Clark departed the podium, the audience continued to stand and applaud for several minutes. The emotional reaction indicated that her remarks had struck a deep chord with listeners who recognized the relevance of her message about accountability and advancement, as well as the historic magnitude of her athletic accomplishments. Games historians observe that breakthrough sportsmen statements frequently become pivotal points in their careers and the evolution of their respective games. The immediate social media reaction to Clark's speech generated millions of views and shares across multiple platforms, with clips of her most impactful moments going viral among basketball fans and broader audiences interested in social justice and equality issues. This is because public statements have the power to influence policy decisions, media coverage, and public perception in ways that extend far beyond individual game performances. It eliminates everything that occurs in the real world. I'm not sure you're in this arena, for example. Her message was discussed in business, education, and political settings in addition to the realm of sports. The speech's media coverage highlighted Clark's maturity and consideration in handling difficult subjects while keeping his attention on basketball.